Hello and welcome to the Consistory of the COELC YouTube channel. I'm your host for this video, Reverend Jake Zabel of the St. John's Evangelical Lutheran Church located in Dalby, Queensland, Australia, a member congregation of the Confessional Orthodox Evangelical Lutheran Communion. So in today's video, I want to address this claim as to whether or not Jesus was born on the 25th of December. So you often see around this time of the year all the atheists and that claiming that, oh, it was actually a pagan festival and that Jesus was really born sometime different in the year, that there's no way that Jesus could have been born in December because that would have been winter, and for some reason shepherds don't look after their flocks out in the field during winter. But, you know, there's claims that, oh, actually the Christians came up with this date to try and, you know, replace a pagan festival. It was to do with the winter solstice, despite the fact that the winter solstice is not on December 25th. It's normally around December 23rd. Some people will claim that it was actually the feast of Mithras or Saturnalia or some other feasts. However, we're going to actually look at the question of, was Jesus born on December 25th? And what did the early church fathers actually say about the birth of Jesus on December 25th? Why did the early church decide to celebrate Christ's birthday on December 25th? Was it to do with pagan rituals or not? Well, actually, one of the earliest Christian theologians to mention the birth date of Jesus on December 25th is St. Hippolytus in the 2nd century. But a more important church father to look at is St. John Chrysostom, who lived around the 400s AD. And the main reason why it's more important to look at what Chrysostom says is because Chrysostom explains why the early church believed that December 25th was the birthday of Jesus. And you'll be surprised to learn that it has nothing to do with pagan rituals. John Chrysostom gives the reason for the birthday of Jesus on December 25th. It has to do with the dating of the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. Now, if we were to read from Luke's Gospel, chapter 1, we read that in the days of King Herod of Judea, there was a priest named Zachariah who belonged to the priestly order of Abijah. His wife was a descendant of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. Both of them were righteous before God, living blamelessly according to all the commandments and regulations of the Lord. But they had no children because Elizabeth was barren and both were getting on in years. Now continuing. Once when he was serving as priest before God, and his section was on duty, he was chosen by lot according to the custom of the priesthood to enter the sanctuary of the Lord and offer incense. Now at that time of the incense offering, the whole assembly of the people was praying outside. Then there appeared to him an angel of the Lord standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zacharias saw him, he was terrified, and fear overwhelmed him. But the angel said to him, "Do not be afraid, Zachariah, for your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you will name him John." Now the text continues, but as you can see here, Zachariah is given this promise that he and his wife will be able to have a son, that he will go home, lie with his wife Elizabeth, and that she will conceive and bear a son. Now, based on the fact that he was alone in the temple, inside the sanctuary, it is believed that Zachariah was in the Holy of Holies. All this mention of him being chosen by lot is a reference to him being the high priest that year, who was to go into the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement and offer the sacrifice for the people. This is explained then by why all the other people were outside while he was inside by himself. So the early church believed that Zachariah received this revelation from the angel, believed to be Gabriel, although this angel is not named Gabriel in Luke 1, although tradition teaches that just as Gabriel announced the conception of Jesus to Mary, the angel Gabriel also announced the conception of John the Baptist to Zachariah. And it is believed that this took place on the Day of Atonement. Now, the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur, takes place on the 10th of Tishri. Now, when does the 10th of Tishri occur? Now, the Jewish calendar is a lunar calendar, not a solar calendar, and so it doesn't line up exactly with the Julian or Gregorian calendars. The date of the 10th of Tishri can occur anytime between the 15th of September through to the 14th of October, according to the Gregorian calendar. St. Chrysostom believed that the year that Jesus was born, or the year before, the time that Zechariah was in the temple, that the Day of Atonement occurred on the date of September 25th. What is interesting is actually next year, in the year 2023, the Day of Atonement will occur on September 25th. Thus, it was believed that Zechariah was in the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement on September 25th. He then went home the next day, September 26th, and conceived his child John the Baptist. 9 months later is June 26th, the date given by the early church as the nativity of John the Baptist. Now, what does any of this have to do with the birth of Jesus? Well, when we get to further on towards the end of Luke chapter 1, when the angel Gabriel comes and announces the conception of Jesus to the Virgin Mary, Gabriel then states to Mary that now your relative Elizabeth in her old age has also conceived a son, and this is the 6th month of her who was said to be barren. So what we have here is that John the Baptist is conceived 6 months before the conception of Jesus, meaning that John the Baptist is 6 months older than Jesus. So if John is conceived on September 26th and born on June 26th, then Jesus would be born in December. Now you'd say, well, why not December 25th? Why December 25th and not December 26th? That's to do with the fact that human pregnancies aren't exactly 9 months. And so you actually got to count the days out. And so if you counted the days of pregnancy from September 26th, you then get to June 26th for John. But if you were to count then to count again, the conception of Jesus would take place not on March 26th, but on March 25. And so because of this, St. John Chrysostom argued that the early church believed Jesus was born on December 25th because March 25th is 6 months after September 25th. And so you have the conception of John the Baptist. 6 months later, or March, you get the conception of Jesus. And then from March 25th, you count 9 months to December 25th. And there you go, you've got the birth of Jesus. There was also another tradition in the early church that believed that since Jesus was a perfect human being, that he would be conceived and die on the same day. And it was believed that Passover on the year of Christ's death occurred around March 25th, so that Good Friday occurred on March 25th, and so that Jesus would be conceived on March 25th and also die on March 25th. Although this was a much later tradition, and I think that's more, they were trying to add something extra to the idea of the birth, conception, birth, and death of Jesus, and it just happens to be that the conception of Jesus also occurs around the same time as the Passover feast. But I mean, that would also be an argument that the conception of Jesus coincides with the feast of Passover, so that this is the coming of the Lamb. It's a nice additional connection to the conception of Jesus, but that is a much later tradition. The earliest tradition amongst the Christians is that the birth date of Jesus was determined based on the conception of John the Baptist, which was determined based on the dating of the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur. So the birth of Jesus on December 25th has actually got nothing to do with pagan rituals or pagan festivals or the winter solstice or Saturnalia or any of those rituals. The reason the Christians picked December 25th is because they believed that that coincided with the conception of John the Baptist right after the Day of Atonement. So the birth of Jesus is determined based on the Day of Atonement. Now, does this mean that Jesus was definitely born on December 25th? Well, we'll never know for sure. For example, we don't know that Zechariah conceived John the Baptist the day after the Day of Atonement. Also, Gabriel just says to Mary that Elizabeth is in her 6th month. Now, that doesn't mean that it's exactly 6 months. Maybe she could be 6.5 months. You know, there's all these things. Plus, we're assuming that John the Baptist and Jesus had perfect, exact gestations where they were born on their exact day rather than being early or late. You know, so there are some assumptions that go into it being December 25th. But the point of this video is that the reason we picked December 25th is not because we have a definite, yes, it was December 25th, we were there, we took photos, we were able to date exactly on a piece of paper that was the day it took place. That's not why we picked December 25th. The reason the early church picked December 25th is because they believed that was the most likely date based on the dating of Yom Kippur and the conception of John the Baptist, and using that then to determine when was the conception and birth of Jesus. So, no, we don't know exactly the day Jesus was born on. However, it would be most likely around the month of December. And December 25th was the date picked based on the day of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, and the conception of John the Baptist. So, no, the date December 25th has got nothing to do with pagan festivals. It actually happens to do with the dating of a Jewish festival, the Day of Atonement. I've been your host, Reverend Jake Zabel. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that answers your question, and have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.